Go. Your choice. That was my guess. I just wanted out for myself. From my
Good evening, everyone. I will now read the notice. Board of Alders received notice. The Health and Human Services Committee will meet in person on Thursday, June 15th, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the Board of Alders chambers, 165 Church Street, second floor, New Haven, CT, to deliberate and act on LM-2023-0357, order of New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the City of New Haven Mayor Controller to enter into a 3-year agreement with Power in the Shower in the amount of $450,000 to implement the Power in the Shower mobile shower service. LM-2023-0358, ordered by the New Haven Board of Alders to authorize the City of New Haven Mayor Controller to enter into a 3-year agreement with Clifford W. Beers Guidance Clinic Incorporated in the amount of $375,000 to provide community support services effective July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2026. And LM-2023-0359, order of the New Haven Board of Alders to authorize the City of New Haven Mayor and Controller to enter into a 3-year agreement with Liberty Community Services Incorporated in the amount of $210,000 to embed case management and service navigation within New Haven Free Public Libraries effective July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2026. These items are on file and available for public inspection in the Office of Legislative Services, 165 Church Street, New Haven, for order Honorable Alex Guzman, Chair, attest Honorable Michael Smart, City Town Clerk. If you need an accessibility related accommodation, please contact 203-946-7651 voice or 203-946-8582 TTY. In accordance with the City of New Haven COVID-19 policies, masks are now optional, and public may send comments to public testimony at newhavenct.gov. So now having read the notice, I'll just quickly have my colleagues introduce themselves from starting from my right.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Richard Perla, Ward 27.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Devin Absalom Smith, Alder, Ward 20.
And Alex Guzman, Ward 1. So I think first we'll start with the first agenda item on our agenda, Power in the Shower. The presenters please come up. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Could you all first just please state your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening, others. I'm Carlos Sosa Lombardo, 54 Cooper Place, New Haven, Connecticut. What to say?
Just pull the mic a little bit closer when you're talking, just so you can hear.
Good evening. My name is Velma George. Address is 347 Mill Rock Road, Hampton, Connecticut.
Others, we're here tonight to speak about mobile shower services. We have implemented that service since the pandemic, 2021.
Yeah.
We have used $40 to pump in. The purpose of the showers is to provide dignity and a way that people who are experiencing homelessness can take actually a shower while they're experiencing their house situation. I will let Vilma talk more in great detail and walk us through her presentation. Thank you for having us here tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. So how did we get here? So it was post-pandemic. We realized that, we had to decompress our shelters. We didn't have enough shelter beds. So, my office decided we needed to shift the way we do business. And so we started really focusing on the unsheltered individuals that we found out in our community. And we started what we call navigation hubs. And these navigation hubs are like, they're more than drop-in centers, but to add context, they're like drop-in centers that people that are unsheltered can go to. They get their basic needs met, basic needs such as like showers, food. They also get connected to medical care, housing case management, and they get connected to actual housing through the CAN. And once we started doing that in 2021, we realized that there were still some areas where we really weren't tapping in to folks. And so the hubs were throughout the city, and then we incorporated the mobile piece to our hub continuum. And with the mobile piece, we call it a one-stop pop-up shop. And why we called it that is because, again, we tried to kind of mirror what we were doing with the navigation hub. So we had, with the one-stop pop-up, it included the mobile shower, plus medical care, medical case management, and outreach and housing case management also. And for the purposes of tonight, we're here to talk specifically about the mobile shower, which is a part of the navigation hubs. And with the mobile shower, our first year, we started in 2022. The first year was kind of slow, just people getting used to us being here and what the purpose is. And so our numbers were very modest. And you'd see toward the back of your package, our numbers were on track to triple the numbers that we had for, so like in 2022, we served like about 346 people. This year, for this fiscal year up to June, not June, up to May, we've served over 900 people already. With showers, hygiene kits, clothes, as well as, I mentioned, outreach case management, housing case management, medical care. We have great partners with the Yale Medical Band, as well as Cornell Scott. Their street medicine team also work closely with us to provide care for our residents. In a nutshell, that's where we are. I don't know if you have questions that you have first.
If I can just, yeah, I'd just like to add something to the presentation. So for this contract, we're gonna be using ARP dollars that was originally encumbered towards the Community Resilience Department in 2021 when the department was created. We found out about 2 months ago that with ARP dollars, we cannot use the clause to renew on RFPs. So we had to go through a process to RFP again this contract, put it out for bidding. We started the process as soon as we learned about the situation, and that's how we are here. So I would like to respectfully request to the committee if we can discharge this item to be voted at the next Board of Alder's meeting, because we would like to continue the services starting July 1st. This is a very essential basic service that we're providing for our house population, and I respectfully request that from you. Thank you.
Thank you both for your presentation. I'll turn to my colleagues to see if they have any questions. Alder Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question. Well, first, thank you all for the work that you do because, the unhoused population across the country, but in our city, often just in general, society fall to the wayside, end up being like invisible people. And I understand the dignity it gives someone, in addition to just the hygienic component of being able to take a shower. And I think it's quite novel that in the hubs, there's other services that folks can get access to. But my one question is, what variables do you think account for the increase in services, seeing as year one and then doubled year two, and what you say tripled this year? What would you say is the reason for that?
Great question. One is we are seeing an increase in our unsheltered population. So that's one. And the other reason is we're being able to identify key areas where the needs are great. So right now we have 3 locations. We had to play around with the locations our first year to see what works. The first year, the green always was our highest concentration, and Fairhaven. And, we tried the Boulevard and different places, but what we realized too that we started a new area in Dixwell. So that area too was a untapped area that we realized that we needed to offer services. So between the increase in the actual increase in numbers that we're seeing, and picking more strategic places.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder. Any other questions from the colleagues? Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. It's good to see you. And thank you for the service that you're providing, this critical service to this population of people that we need to really care about. So this is a 3-year agreement. You started looking in May.
When did we release the RFP? May?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm just wondering, how did you select the locations?
For the showers,
Yes. And we have the New Haven Green, Barrett Memorial, and the Redeemed Christian Church.
yeah, that's on Grand Avenue. We were looking for key places. We know that Grand Avenue was a real hot spot. And we've tried several areas in Fairhaven. We started out further up on like East Pearl Street. The homeless folks told us that's too far to walk, so we came closer down to Grand and Ferry. And basically just being able to find partners that are willing to allow us to be in their space. And so that's been one of the between where folks are located and finding partners. And so with over on Dixwell too, that was also, Barrett was very open to, housing us once a week.
So you'll be using their parking lots?
Yes, their parking lot
Their parking lot that's,
on
okay.
Dixwell, yeah.
And I don't know whether Redeemed Christian Church.
It's right across from the post office on Grand Avenue.
Okay, I don't know why I can't picture it. Yes, I know where that is. It's
Yeah.
way down,
Yeah.
past the McDonald's.
No, it's not that far down.
No?
It's near Grand and where post office is on Grand Avenue. It's just across the street from the post office on Grand Avenue.
Okay.
There's a liquor
It's
store
big-
there
there's
too.
They have a big parking lot. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like
okay.
in the front and the building is set back.
In the back, yeah, okay.
I believe there was some construction too going on around that. So you may have not seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go to Grand Avenue to go to supermarket to get my pizza. So are these churches charging you to
No.
use their space?
No. Not at all.
Great, okay. And there's no charge, of course, at the New Haven Green.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Any other questions from the colleagues? I do have one question. Just out of curiosity, when we released the RFP, do we know how many organizations or other programs responded, or was Power and Shower, the only organization that responded.
That was the only, group that responded.
I'd like to recognize Alder Streeter has joined us. Thank you, Alder Streeter, for joining us. And then the other question, actually, no, I think Alder Majority Leader Furlow asked about how to place in the selection of a shower. So I think that was a really helpful answer. I think other than that, I don't have any other questions. I'll ask again one last time. Any other colleagues have any other questions? Alder Furlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one other question. After this 3-year, what's the plan to keep facilitating? That's where are we going? This is ARPA funds this time. I keep saying ARP. It's not, it's ARPA. So after this, after the ARPA funds are expired, how will we continue this program?
So what we're hoping is within 3 years, we have the other ARPA money, the home ARPA funds. And after 3 years, we're hoping to have additional beds and housing options for people. So we're giving ourselves that 3 year to develop and build.
Great. A lot of work.
Yes.
The hope is that in 3 years, we will not need these services.
Right.
Oh, great.
That's what we're hoping.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alder Streeter.
Yes, I have questions about this. This is the shower thing that I was asking about before. So what I'd like to know, we're doing this here about, okay, as far as the locations that you're usually gonna have to go to, are you looking into having that expanded, or how's that gonna be done?
Before y'all answer, I'd just like to quickly recognize Alder Saban has joined us. Alder Saban has joined us.
So Alder Streeter, before you came in, I mentioned that what we do is we look for areas that have the highest concentration of homeless individuals that are highly visible areas that people could get to easily. And so we have, we knew that we needed something in Fairhaven, also in Dixwell and downtown. We only had enough money for 3 spaces. And in addition, what I forgot to mention is that in addition to the 3 locations, we will be offering come July 1st, evening showers. Because that was one of the requests, and the evening showers will be done on the green. So it'll be 4, instead of 3 stops, there'll be 4 stops, but just 3 locations. And that's our hope, is to do the evening showers on the green.
So you're saying evening showers on the New Haven Green, so what about when they have programs out there such as, how they have now, gonna be showering?
No, so what we do is, great question. What we did was we partnered with the church on the corner of Chapel and Temple to use their space. So that's what we do while the Arts and Ideas Festival is going on. We use the church parking lot for our services. So we get to still stay downtown.
Okay, so I see up here, you have the green barrack, you have the green twice, so it's going green 2
Yeah,
times a
that's
week?
what, yeah, because in the mornings on Tuesday and then in the evenings on Thursday.
Okay, then Fridays, okay, the Christian Church, Grand Avenue, 9 to 12. Okay, all right.
Thank you, Alder Streeter. I actually have one, go over to Alder Astro first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question, kind of a comment. It seems to me that services like this could possibly be needed ongoing. It seems like a great component of service. You know, I'm aware that although the goal is to expand out to have enough beds for people, I know unhoused folks that won't go to a shelter because of the conditions often, and also fear of being robbed or assaulted. Some people just prefer, honestly, to be outside. They're safer. So I wonder, I think that this would benefit people even when there are more beds, but obviously it's how you pay for it. But I just wanted to kind of state that.
That's a great observation, Alder. And one of the things that, we've been able to collect some data this year, because that's always been the question. Well, most people want to be outside, and what we're realizing is that we've expanded our warming center hours and the time, because normally we shut down the warming centers in April, but through other assistance from the state, we were able to extend the time. And I have to tell you, more people prefer to be inside than out. There's a small fraction of people, because I was thinking they would want to stay outside because it's nice. Every single one of our warming, which are now cooling centers, are full to capacity. So it confirms for me that given the opportunity, people want to be outside, be inside and not outside.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder. I actually have another question that just came up. I know it mentions here, we're providing showers per week during service season. What are the months considered service season? Is it just summer months or a little bit more than that? Until it gets
Great question.
colder?
So we do it six months out of the year. So we do it in the spring and the summer, the warmer months. And also remember, I said we have a continuum of hubs. And so we have other hubs that full-time year-round provide showers also. But we just add the extra mobile piece to it in the warmer months.
Okay, thank you for that.
And really, we can't afford to do it year-round. That's also kind of the bottom line. Our vendor, he's been able over this past year to improve his, the plumbing and the technology within his system to be able to go year round, which he pitched, but, we really don't have the funds to do year round.
Okay, thank you. And one last question for me. I know you mentioned one of the things that some folks had raised was expanding the hours and this proposed schedule in the agreement. You all are expanding hours, which I think is great. Is there anything else, maybe you've heard from folks who are using the showers in terms of things that they might need, other services that they might need? Just so, again, you can get an idea of whether something else may be needed for.
Yeah, so one of the things that we did here was that we needed evening hours. And so with this new contract, we're proposing to add those evening hours. But as far as other services, they are able to get the other services in the other hubs that we have.
Thank you for that. I'll ask if any other colleagues have any other questions. I'll also say we have reached quorum now, so should have mentioned that earlier in the meeting, but it was originally a workshop because we didn't have any quorum, but now we do have quorum. And so this is no longer a workshop, it's official meeting. All right. Any other colleagues have any other questions?
No, I don't have a question. I have basically a statement. I think that this portable shower thing is very much needed. I've seen it in action I've seen it on Barrett, and people do like to use it, and it's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you all for your, thank you very much for your presentation. We will now have the presenters for Clifford W. Beers Guidance Clinic. Please come up. Good evening.
Leona Mitchell, 107 Foster Street, New Haven, Connecticut.
Carlos Soto Lombardo, 54 Cooper Place, New Haven, Connecticut.
Thank you.
Good evening, elders. Thank you very much for having us here today to talk about the community and support team. It's a very important work that we started back in 2021. This team was created as a response to community input while we were building Help City Campus. We heard from community leaders, community members, and legislators that we need to have a better response when there are traumatic incidents in the community, especially gun violence. So we started this team to address traumatic incidents in the community. We are now looking to enter a 3-year agreement. They have helped over 1,000 people since we established the team. And it's very important work for our community. In the ideal world, we will not need this team. There will not be gun violence. But unfortunately, we have gun violence in our community, and we need to provide the supports that our community members need because of the trauma and many different issues that come about because of gun violence. So thank you very much for listening to us today. And I'll have Lorena walk us through the presentation.
So as Carlos started to share, the Community Healing Support Team offers services and supports to individuals, families, and communities who've been impacted by community violence or any community-wide tragedy, whether that's gun violence, homicide, unexpected death, fatal traffic collision. The team will respond to a family or an individual or community, de-escalate the traumatic experience, assess for needs, make referrals, coordinate care, and provide flex funding if necessary. As some background, the Community Healing Support Team was founded, established in 2021, and was funded by the Department of Community Resilience through ARPA funding. Clifford Beers has an exceptional reputation in our community, and so the team is really based on strong relationships and partnerships. The team regularly coordinates with city departments, police, fire, LCI, and Community Services Administration. The team has many connections with community nonprofits, to name a few: Community Action Agency of New Haven, VH Care, Yale Child Study, Bereavement Network, CTVIP, and I could go on. And the team also has begun to develop some really strong relationships with other community leaders, elected officials, elders, and clergy around the city. As Carlos mentioned, in the first year, the team served almost 1,000 people, 947, which included 40 in-person responses and 9 community canvases. In this fiscal year through March 31st, which is what I have reporting for, the team has already served 837. And you may notice there's on your one pager, there's a slightly different numbers and statistics just because that actually is a calendar year. But no matter how you cut it, basically every 12 months, the team is serving 1,000 people in our city. One of the essential parts of the program is the flex funding. So the team can distribute money to people in the wake of a tragedy. And I think it's just really crucial to recognize that having money in your pocket after a tragedy actually can make you more resilient to that trauma. And so the team has this year so far been able to distribute $9,000 to families. Some examples of the money is paying for hotels and gift cards for food, paying for hospital parking and gift cards to the mother of a shooting victim, household furnishings to the mother of a homicide victim who had to relocate, and funeral costs for a young person who was lost to gun violence in our city. You'll also see on the one pager that the team is serving a really diverse group of residents and is in neighborhoods across the city, which I think is really important to note. As you know, we're looking to enter a 3-year agreement with Clifford Beers to be able to provide the services more sustainably. And the total award would be $375,000 over the course of 3 years. And we really see a 3-year agreement building the capacity and the quality of our team. We know that the capacity of the team has already increased since it's been developed, and we assume that as Clifford Beers continues to, as their staff get up to date, as they work out internal workflows, like we know that the team is just going to be able to serve more people. And we really see Clifford Beers being able to set the standards, best practices for this type of work in our city, if they're able to sustainably provide this service over the next 3 years. And we know that they're going to continue growing their expertise and resources and navigation and partnerships, and we really hope to give them that opportunity through this agreement. I just want to end briefly on a client story because I think that's most illustrative of the work. A couple of months ago, a family, their apartment was destroyed due to some gunfire, and understandably, the family was having a really hard time staying in the apartment. Not only was there damage to the apartment, but there's really a extreme sense of insecurity in that space. So police referred this family to the community healing support team, and the team was able to go in and assess what the family needed, and it was decided that the family wanted to relocate. So Clifford Beers helped them relocate. Once they were in a new place, they were able to pay for things like a Ring doorbell to help the family feel safer in that new location. And then of course, Clifford Beers was also able to make sure that there was appropriate communication with the school, so that the school knew it was happening, and to refer both the mother and the kids to longer-term therapeutic services, because a traumatic event can continue to impact people 6 months, a year later. So making sure that those longer-term supports were in place. And then in addition to the support that that family got, the team canvassed the neighborhood, specifically targeting the areas where people might have witnessed the violence, knocked on doors, really just had conversations with neighbors. How are you doing? How are you feeling after this? Did you, is there anything that you need right now? And then Clifford Beers, armed with tons of resources, were able to pass out information about childcare, food pantries, mental health resources, internet connection, like you name it, Clifford Beers has a resource in hand. So that is just one example of the type of work that this team does for our city. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Valerie. I may just add something else to Lorna's presentation. Similar to the previous contract, this contract will be funded, if approved, by ARP dollars that were encumbered to the Department of Community Resilience in 2021 when the department was created. Again, we learned about the situation of the RFPs, that we could use the option to renew with ARP dollars. And we started an RFP process a couple months ago as soon as we learned about it. So we're here today, and I respectfully ask you if this item could be discharged to be voted before Board of Aldermen at the next meeting, so that we can give continuity to this program and avoid interruption of services. Thank you.
Thank you both for your presentation. We'll now have colleagues ask any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. One of my questions is, how are community partners included in response efforts?
Absolutely. There's not necessarily like one formula fits all. And so I would say it's very fluid response with community partners depending on the situation. For example, there are some times where a community partner like Bereavement Care Network may be the first to hear about a family in need in the wake of community violence. And in that case, they may be the ones on the ground and then calling on the community healing support team to fill in gaps of their care. In other cases, there was a major tragedy when we lost a young person, and the alder of that ward actually stepped up and was the main communicator with the family, but then could sort of tag in the community healing support team again to coordinate care, to fill gaps, to identify resources. And then in other cases, PD will call the community healing support team directly, and they'll be the ones interacting with the family. But the partnerships are really what make the program function, so they're essential. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I just would suggest that in partnership with churches, etc., that you're able to find some of the people who, and I'm sure some of these people are included, I would imagine, but people who are in the community, residents who are well respected, also who know kind of the mechanics of the social movement in some of these neighborhoods. It seems that it would be very important for them to be involved.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you for that feedback.
Thanks. And I have one more question right now is, what's the plan for once the 3 years expires?
That's a great question.
I can talk about that. So since we created this team, I have been in conversations with Christopher Beers. Lorena is also working with them. We have been reducing the amount of money we give them every year so that they can also self-sustain and look for additional funding. They have the capacity to do it, and they have the willingness to go after grants that can pay for these after the third year.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder. Any other questions from colleagues? Majority Leader Furlow, or
I'll yield to your committee members first, and then I'll go.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I heard you say that you assist with funerals. Are you saying that you, is it the stipend that you give, or?
Yes, that's correct. We provide stipends to cover funeral fees.
Okay, I think that's a nice thing. And you're saying you also, so you help the family during the difficult times, and, I think, that is always needed, as far as when people of bereavement, more ears or people more comfort is always a good need. I think that's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Majority Leader Furlow. Question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So let's look at the money.
Yes.
So we have 212,000 for salaries, which includes how many people are actually on staff?
The salaries are covering a portion of a program manager, a portion of program coordinator, and then a portion of a care coordinator.
So 3 people.
3 people. This grant covers portions of their salaries, correct?
And what's the 49,000? What's fringe?
Those are benefits like medical insurance.
And the on-call staff stipends is that overtime? Or just, you got to send somebody out? Well, I'll let you answer instead of me answering.
So the team can be activated on the weekends. We know that crises happen off hours too, and so they do, if somebody is called on the weekends or after hours, they provide an on-call stipend, correct?
And we have 10% for admin.
Yes.
34,000, what would that description be?
Yeah, so the admin is 3450 over the 3 years. If we break it down by year, it's 11,350. That will cover their overhead expenses like payroll.
Okay.
then they're gonna get supervision.
Great, and we have 30,000 that's for flex funding. So how do people apply? So say that there's a death or a need, how do you decide who gets what, how much, and who qualifies?
That's a great question. And when the team is referred or when the team responds to a family in crisis, that's part of their initial assessment is, are there going to be any major costs associated with this incident? What are you able to cover? And can the team fill in those gaps if necessary? So the main eligibility criteria is that somebody has been sort of referred to the community healing support team and is eligible for those services in the first place. And then from there, the team does an assessment to understand what would really make a difference in that family's life at that moment.
So if a child is unfortunately tragically killed, it would stand to reason that most families would not be able to cover that funeral expense, which would certainly be more than a couple of $1,000s. So how do you decide how to make that gap up? I mean, funerals are at least $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 sometimes for a funeral. With 30,000, that's a very small amount. So I'm still not sure how you decide how much money a family would get. Is there a percentage or a guideline that you go by, or you just kind of say, well, you get 2,000, we'll give you 5,000? How do you make that determination?
That's a really good question, Aller, and we can get back to you to see how Clifford Beers is triaging that. My understanding is that the PD engages the families first, and they have to accept the service for them to be referred to Clifford Beers. Clifford Beers then will come in and make an assessment. I cannot tell you today how they reached that conclusion. You are actually asking a very good question, and I'll get back to you via email in writing.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if we can have that information on the formula and whether there's any kind of application process, if you would consider that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll happily take that request and link to me. If we can get that information, that'd be really helpful.
And I think that's all I have for now, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Majority. Any other questions from colleagues? Seeing none, I have one final question. I know my colleague, Alder Ashmore-Smith mentioned how you all work with partners and determining, who to reach out. And I've seen, unfortunately, these incidents have happened, pretty frequently over this past year. So I've seen the reports of, PD and a bunch of, Yale Child Study Center and local leaders come out and canvass and check up on folks who are directly affected or who are in the area and still affected by a shooting or a major incident. So it's a long-winded way to get to my question, which is how can, alders and other community leaders reach out to potentially ask, for support. I think sometimes, you have incidents that happen and then some people are really affected right away. And I feel like there's other people who take a bit of time to really, realize like, this big incident really happened close to me and it could have been me. So I just want to know whether there's any contact information or a way, any alders or any other community leaders can kind of get in contact with the team to potentially have folks take advantage of these services.
Yes, absolutely. On the one pager, there's an email address in the box. What we do right at the bottom, chst@cliffordbeers.org. That email is to make direct referrals to the team. So you can contact and sort of write a brief description of what's going on. I'd also be happy, my contact is in the slide deck. If you're having any trouble reaching somebody through the referral email.
Thank you so much. Finally ask if any other colleagues have any other questions. Seeing none, thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll hear the last item on our agenda, the 3-year agreement with Liberty Community Services Incorporated.
Thank you.
If you could say your name and address for the record, just one more time, please.
Lorena Mitchell, 107 Foster Street.
Carlos Sosa Lombardo, 54 Cooper Place, Miami, Connecticut. Others, thank you so much for this opportunity once again to present another 3-year contract. This time is for a case manager, social services navigator that is embedded in the public libraries. Lorena will walk us through some of the history around the program and where we are today. But as you all may be aware, one of the biggest issues we faced a few years ago was that people who are experiencing homelessness or people who are experiencing a crisis oftentimes go to libraries to either seek help or just to decompress a little bit. And it was creating a quality of life issues at the library that was able to be resolved by embedding a social, in great part resolved by embedding a social worker at the libraries. The social worker connects with people, canvasses the library inside, and there are people who are skilled in specialized in interacting with people who are experiencing homelessness to help them through their journey and eventually get housed, get the help that they're looking for. I'll pass it on to you, Lorena.
Thanks. And I want to acknowledge Maureen Sullivan, Acting Director of our New England Free Public Libraries, and Louise Chavez, Promo, Deputy Director here too. So I'm sure that they can speak in great detail about this program as well. As some background, actually, Liberty Community Services has partnered with the library since 2016 to provide this essential service. In 2018, the city was able to provide some CBDG funding, and then in fiscal year 20, the Office of Housing and Homelessness funded the program, and the contract was transferred to my office, the Office of Community Mental Health Initiatives, this current fiscal year. As Carlos mentioned, this is really low barrier, easy to access, essential service in our libraries, and we know that library workers have many skills, but aren't necessarily social service workers and don't always feel adequately prepared to respond to the complex needs of patrons. And so the caseworker program has been really essential, especially in helping patrons with time-intensive tasks like obtaining vital documents, preparing for job applications, acquiring housing, all of these things which would pull library workers away from their primary responsibilities. The program is reaching our community. It's in, one of our most accessible spaces, our free public libraries, and no appointment is necessary. Clients are seen on a first come, first served basis. So it really is like one of the easiest services to access when you're used to navigating a complex social service system. This kind of strips away some of those complications. So far this year, the caseworker has served 154 individuals, on average 6 people per day, which means that many people are receiving services multiple days over the course of weeks or even months, which really speaks to the complexity of the types of issues that the caseworker is assisting with. It's not just something you can sit down and complete in 40 minutes. Maybe sometimes it is, but often it's more complicated. Housing applications, getting your birth certificate from North Carolina, or a complex immigration question. So a lot of hard work going on at our libraries. And as you can see from the one pager, the caseworker is serving a very racially diverse group of people and really an extremely low income group of people in our city. Again, just some highlights of this 3-year agreement. We really want to see this program sustainable, and we know that the guarantee of 3 years would add stability and consistency to this program. Unfortunately, there has been a lot of turnover in the caseworker position, and right now the caseworker over at the library is amazing. She's a SOAR specialist, which means she's really, really skilled at navigating Social Security benefits, which is so essential to our community. And we're really hoping that she wants to stay on to this job, and knowing that, there's an agreement in place for 3 years, obviously makes it easier to retain really skilled workers. We also know that consistency is key with this program. It works best when the caseworker is reliably present and ideally at all hours that the library is open. And this enables, word of mouth. People know that someone's always there. And what we found over the years is it's just so important that that person is always there. So that's what we're hoping to achieve with the 3-year agreement, $210,000 for services provided between July 1st of 2023 through June 30th of 2026. And I'll again end on a client story because I think the stories really give depth to the work and the numbers. There was a young adult who would frequent the library to do work, to hang out, and was curious about the case manager, sort of walked by her office regularly, poked a head in, and the caseworker eventually started having lunch with this young person and just getting to know him. And he, after developing a relationship and rapport with this caseworker, actually asked her, is it normal to be thinking about killing myself? Which is a really heavy question, but the caseworker, as sort of a skilled human services professional, was able to respond in a really gentle and affirming way, and also do a full risk assessment to understand what this young person was going through, to hear their story, and to make sure ultimately that they were connected to longer term mental health care. But I think, again, it speaks to this program. It's in a non-behavioral healthcare setting. It's destigmatizing. The libraries are for everyone. And because the program was so accessible, ultimately this young person was able to get the help that they need in a really safe and caring way. And so, again, that's just one of many, many impactful stories I could tell, but I thought was a really powerful one.
Just as a very gentle point of order, Mr. Chair, perhaps the library should be present for this conversation so we can ask questions together with city staff.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Come up and we'll quickly just ask if, before you begin speaking, if you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Maureen Sullivan. I'm the acting city librarian, and I live at 201 Fox Hop Yard Road in East Haddam.
Hello, good evening. Luis Chavez Bermel, Deputy Director, 582 Ocean Avenue, West Haven, Connecticut.
Thank you. We'll turn to my colleagues to see if they have any questions for the presenters and folks from the library first. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to hear from the library and how they feel about this program. I think it's, well, I'll save my comments for after you speak.
Hi, everyone. So I am a New Haven native, born and raised, and I work in the public library system in several different roles. And so I can say that I appreciate and grateful for the partnership with Liberty Community Services and having caseworkers in the library. As Lorena and Carlos mentioned, that there are critical primary responsibilities of library staff that really kind of facilitate and that require true attention, that caseworkers, you were just kind of separate roles but complementary. So a perfect example would be access to computers. A big aspect of public libraries is centered on digital equity and digital literacy. So when patrons come into the library, let's say for example, if they need support, say applying for a job, a caseworker, as Lorena and Carlos mentioned, can facilitate that process, but library staff can help with, say, computer classes, and then also expanding knowledge in different areas. And so it's a great way to kind of complement and build capacity.
So Luis and I are here because we walked in thinking we were going to do this presentation. You have seen a model partnership here in the way Lorena described the situation. I sat back there listening to you and I was thinking, and I said to Luis, she's doing it for us. And the document that you have is a really nice summary of it. But I would also add the public libraries here in New Haven receive everyone. My button libraries are for everyone and really make a difference in people's lives. And when we have a resource like Liberty Services able to partner with us and handle the specialized needs of the people of New Haven, it enriches our opportunity to be effective in doing the work that we do. And I want you to know, Alex, the first person outside of the library I met when I started my work last June was a Liberty Services person in the Fairhaven Library. I walked in for a tour of Fairhaven, and there she was doing her work. So I was introduced to it from the beginning and could see how valuable it would be. And you probably all know the library is moving from the chief administrative office to the community services, and we are really looking forward to this work now. We weren't originally, because it's a little bit of a shock to us, but we can see the benefit of this now.
I just have one other question, Mr. Chairman, maybe before I release it back to you, if I may. I'm very delicate with this question. We have an increase of residency that is in tremendous need of mental health care. And these may be some of the people that end up in libraries. And so how is your staff dealing with those that might be beyond the scope of what the library offers and may need additional support because of perhaps being disruptive to those that are there? I haven't been to the library in a very long time. I have a card, but I haven't been there in a long time, and I remember the libraries, you had to be quiet there, and I'm not sure if that's still the same now.
Well, come tomorrow, we have music being
Oh, wow, so things have changed. But my question is, how does your staff deal with our more delicate residents that need more specialized support that come into libraries?
I can tell them on our end, under what we have in the web portfolio, and maybe the library if they want to add anything else. But basically, we have City Compass doing rounds the libraries now. They go there often to try to connect with those individuals that you mentioned. It's my understanding that they work closely with Luis and Maureen's staff to identify the people who need that extra support. One of the biggest challenges, though, is that people need to be able to accept the help. We cannot force anybody to take on treatment or resources if they're not looking to accept it. So oftentimes it takes a lot of time, a lot of relationship building, a lot of trust building, and eventually getting to speak to the person at the right time, at the right moment when they're ready to accept the service. So we're doing consistent work, and hopefully in a few more months we can start seeing a change.
So my concern, and I'm trying to be delicate because it's a sensitive issue. My concern is, how do you deal with those that are disruptive, that come into the library Because now it seems that the library is becoming a place not just of studying and resource, but now we're blending in social services into a library. So how do you handle this?
Well, the first thing I would say, and it's a really important question that you're asking, having this resource is essential to addressing the point that you're making. Because we also have the opportunity to call in the police, and everyone working in the library would prefer to bring in a trained social worker before having to turn someone over to the police. But there also are incidents where we have to go to the police first because it's such a serious instance. And it's also the case that one of the things about the library staff as well as Liberty Services staff is there's a relationship that builds with some of these individuals over time. And the people who keep coming back to us, we make an effort to serve. But one of the things I've had to do in this last year, and Luis does some of this as well, we've had to suspend people. And we're very careful when we do a suspension that it aligns with the infraction that caused that. But our first hope in every one of these situations is that if we can't address the person's need, we can turn to Liberty Services. It's a really essential program for the people of New York.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very helpful.
Thank you, Majority Leader. I'll ask if any other colleagues have any other questions. Alder Streeter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a follow up on you said, as he was saying, it is a difficult matter. So when you suspend, do they honor it or do they still try to sneak in there? Because, I know that they may think that they're, you forgot or they can blend in or whatever.
Yep.
Thank you for the question, Alder Streeter. It's something that gets very delicate, as Alder Verlo was saying. So first and foremost, as we're saying, libraries are for everyone. And so when folks do not follow our guidelines, we have to make the suspension. We have suspensions that vary over lengths of time. So for example, someone might be suspended for say a month, others might be suspended for a year or permanently. So we always assess that. We work closely. We actually have contracted security guards on library premises. And so they make tours, rounds. We have security cameras in the buildings. And so what we do is once we have a person identified, we have a system where, for example, they have a library card that will have just be able to say for patrons suspended, they can use their services. And then by and large, the patrons, they respect the process overall because we do have to get the police involved. We did have a situation fairly recently where someone who was suspended was just kind of walking around. They saw the security guard that had served the suspension letter. They just turned around and walked away. So it does work as a deterrent.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Alder Streeter. I'll ask if any other colleagues have any other questions. I do have one quick question. I know the case worker has been in the main library for a while now, but I didn't know that they're at Fairhaven and at some other branches. And according to this contract, they'll continue being at the main library, Fairhaven branch, Wilson branch. Is there any idea right now on the hours or days, just to get that information, out, just for folks to know? And I guess a follow-up is whether that will change, whether expand or whether stay the same.
Yes, great question. The contract that we are looking to enter with Liberty Community Services would cover a full-time caseworker at the downtown library for the course of 3 years. And that's from, I think, 10 to 5:30. Just a point of clarification, this contract would not cover services at Fairhaven and Wilson, but those would continue pending CDBG funding. And the hours at Wilson and Fairhaven are sort of more office hour style, 4 hours Tuesday afternoon at Wilson.
It was Tuesday afternoons at Wilson, I believe Thursdays in Fairhaven.
Yes, that sounds right to me, 12 to 4 p.m.
Okay, that was really helpful. Thank you for the answer. I don't have any other questions. I mean, I've never been shy about talking about the library and how much it's helped me get to where I am. And so I'll leave sort of other comments for any discussion later, but yeah, I think it's great that we're thinking about mixing the library and social services together, but also, again, as some of my colleagues have pointed out, making sure that everyone feels comfortable, but also can feel comfortable in being in the library and, you know, doing what they need to do, and also seeking any help that they need to do. So I'm really thankful for the presentation, and thankful for you both for coming today and speaking a little bit. Any other colleagues have any other questions? Majority Leader.
I'm not even on this committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking at the budget, and I'm just wondering what the materials and supplies would be for about 7,000.
Materials and supplies covers marketing materials that advertise the availability of services. Liberty Community Services, as you can imagine, is ingrained in a lot of different community meetings and homelessness outreach. So they have a large network that they can distribute marketing materials to make sure that people know about this service.
And that's a lot more than the other for advertising. That was 15.
Oh, sorry, I'm just looking at the budget. Materials and supplies. I'm sorry. No, materials and supplies are insurance and cell phone.
Oh,
Just a clarification, that's over 3 years, not yearly.
yeah, I understand. Yeah, so it's cell phone usage, employees get cell phones, and what else did you say? The personnel services are about 154,000.
Yeah, the cell phone is around like 300, 400 per year, and then insurance cost.
How many employees are you expecting or how many personnel?
The case manager's salary is covered, and then a portion of a program manager's salary is covered.
Two people. On this
Correct,
one.
yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Majority Leader. Any other colleagues have any other questions? Seeing none, thank you again for your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, Albert, I think I forgot to also explain the situation about the ERP contract. You did? Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, so we've heard from the city that due to the timeliness of this nature of these items, that it would be helpful to have a motion to discharge and discharge these items from committee. So we'll definitely keep that in mind as we proceed. Now we'll take any. Now we'll move on to the public portion of this meeting. Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify on any of these items? For the second time, is there anyone from the public wishing to testify on any of these items? For the third and last time, is there anyone from the public wishing to testify on these items? Do I hear a motion? The public portion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we close the public portion of this meeting.
Second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion to close the public portion of this meeting has been passed. Now we will proceed to provide any comments or discussion on any of the items. As I mentioned earlier, city staff did request that we motion discharge, which would mean we wouldn't take any action on these items. However, I think if there's any comments that any of my colleagues would like to make on any of these items, be happy to hear, or if any colleagues opposed to that motion discharge, I'd also be willing to hear any of those cases. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion to discharge is completely at your discretion, and it's not something that we need to vote on. That's completely up to you. We don't need to stay on that as chair, and I will save any discussion when it reaches the full board on the floor. Thank you.
See Alder Ashman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. Regarding item 1, LM 2023-0357, I just reiterate that I think that it's a much needed service. I am concerned, however, that all three, that there is reliance on the ARPA funds. I think that's pretty short-sighted, and I understand that at this moment, these are services that need to be rendered pretty much immediately. So I understand why that is almost the first option, but I do want to note my concerns that it seems very short-sighted, especially for item number LM 2023-0358. I'm very concerned by the fact that the majority of the requested funding is going towards 3 positions, and the smallest amount is going towards direct impact on families, when it seems to me the general purpose of the program is to assist families. To reiterate one of the statements made by a colleague is funerals are expensive. And at a $30,000 budget, or excuse me if I quoted that wrong, it seems to me counterproductive to have so much money going into salary, and it gives me grounds for pause. And then finally, I again think the caseworker is absolutely a necessary component. But again, just reiterating, I think it's very short-sighted to be funding all of this through ARPA funds. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder. Is there any other colleague have any other want to make? I will just quickly say, I know that city staff mentioned, again, the same time I'm saying this, that they would like these items to be discharged from committee, and I think just on my end, and I know in other committees regarding other items, this has been said, and I want to make sure this committee says it as well, that we definitely would appreciate that whenever an item or an RFP or an agreement is being made, that it gets to the board on time, or as quickly as folks can get it. I know this time situation was a little bit, ARPA funds are a new thing, and I wouldn't be surprised if there weren't a few mistakes. But I think, again, as always with agreements, I think it's helpful when we can get them on time. That way, our colleagues and the rest of the committee members can take the time to really review them and make sure that there's something that will really be helping the city. So I just wanted to make that point. Having said that, I will discharge these items, I ask the president to discharge these items from the committee. So we'll have staff put in that request. All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chair. Second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any opposed? Seeing none, this meeting has been adjourned.